Oh, yes.
Welcome back, everyone. Today I'm very excited to bring you a review for the new Transformers Studio Series 86, number 11, Perceptor. Perceptor is part of a new Deluxe wave, in which he is the only 86 cast member to appear, and then all the other Deluxes are characters from the Bumblebee movie, so he stands out a little bit. Interestingly, he also appears to be shipping separately from them in a lot of cases, even though they're supposed to be part of the same wave. So I did end up getting him first. And for anyone that doesn't know, this toy is an all-new mold, meant to be very faithful to Perceptor's, cartoon appearance, especially from the 86 movie. Though there are some extra details added to allow him to achieve his secret tank and mortar modes. That being said, if you've seen my reviews before, you know how this goes. We're going to take a look at Perceptor's packaging, then we'll open it up, we'll see the instructions. At some point, we'll take a look at his included backdrop, and we'll see Perceptor himself in his alt modes and robot mode. Naturally, I'll be doing some group shots and comparisons today, and then at the end of the video, I'll give my final thoughts. So Perceptor comes in your standard Studio Series packaging, which now has a half window, much like the War for Seibertron and Legacy toys. So you can see most of Perceptor here. And then you get his artwork right on the front. You get his number, 8611, name, branding, your Transfomers The Movie logo there, since that's what the 86 sub-brand is based off of. Close-up of his face on this side. More far-out shot here. And then on the back, we get renders of the toy. You can see his telescope and robot modes, as well as a little bubble here showing off his tank mode. You can see he takes 20 steps to transform. His backdrop is called Battle of Autobot City. And then he's got some flavor text down here that says, after observing a fleet of incoming enemies, Perceptor reports that a cursory evaluation of Decepticon capability indicates a distinct tactical deficiency. Or in other words, they're outnumbered. So they're making a reference directly to his and Ultra Magnus' lines in the movie, which does give me some fun ideas for group shots, maybe. And yeah, that's about all there is to see. I mean, the renders look pretty faithful to the final product, maybe some slight differences in tone. I think the blue of the renders is a little darker, but that might just be, lighting and stuff. So there we go. That's everything we need to see on the box. So let's go ahead and open it up. Here's the instruction sheet for Perceptor. So you can see his name, the logo, his number, and a big render of him right here on the front. You open it up, and the first thing it shows you is how to get his little scope thing configured from the packaging. And it shows you how to have him hold his rifle. And then next, it just goes straight into the transformation from robot to microscope. So we go around the back here. There's a microscope mode. And then a quick conversion into what they call the tank. However, this isn't really Perceptor's tank mode. As we'll see, this is more a mortar mode. And I'll get into, what the confusion is there. Then lastly, a weapon placement for both of the alt modes right here. So, pretty much covers everything. Doesn't cover his actual tank mode transformation, but that's because the toy is not really designed to have it, unlike the original. But, we'll go ahead and take a look at all that. And now we get to see Perceptor's telescope mode, and it's pretty much exactly what you'd expect. Same familiar shape and all that. This is how you store his weapon on the side. You just kind of have it pointing back and upward a little bit. I mean, there's other ways you can do it, but that's the official placement. Now, his little telescope area here, what's really cool is that it ratchets. So it has a nice, solid way of maintaining a position instead of just flopping around, unlike his Titan's Return toy that we'll see here soon. And it's very simple. No special gimmicks, nothing going on. There's no headmaster put in here this time or slides. It just looks like a telescope. And, I mean, it does its job pretty well. It's pretty clean looking, not too kibbly. You can see the back of his head here, but at least it's just the back of his head. And overall, I think it's satisfying. Sadly, there is no way to, focus or, turn the knob or anything. In fact, you can't actually even see through here. There's a little bit of light pass through, but you can't make out any kind of image, so that's a little bit of a downgrade. This doesn't turn. This whole area right here is just for show, which, I mean, is kind of the direction things go now, right? It's kind of form over function at this point. Now that Hasbro's really chasing that screen accuracy, which means a lot of times, classic features get gutted, lots of fake parts are used. Luckily in Perceptor's case, there really are no fake parts. I mean, he transforms more or less the same way he did from the beginning, so At least we don't have that. Okay, now we have our comparison with the Titan's Return toy in its microscope form. Have I been calling it a telescope this whole time? I hope not. I might have, though. You all know what I meant, though. And one thing I will say is that the Titan's Return version, it makes for a much messier looking telescope. It's definitely not as, clean looking as, say, our new version here. Very kind of kibbly looking. It is, however, a much better functional telescope. You see, you can actually focus this thing and adjust it by turning this knob right here. And that actually does change the focus, and you can actually look down inside of this thing and see, at least a lot better than you can with that. So that is one big advantage that it has. The downside is that this thing fits pretty loosely on its peg, so it has a tendency to kind of wobble around a little bit. So, a lot of give and take there. Aesthetically, this thing is much more based on the original toy, at least as far as colors go. It uses that more greenish blue color that the G1 Perceptor uses, and even has some tampos to replicate the tech detailing stickers on that toy. Our new Perceptor, being cartoon-based, uses this, more, I want to call it periwinkle shade of blue, and, much flatter colors overall. Even to the point where they don't even paint the tank treads that they use for the tank form, just to make him, look more like his cartoon self. I mean, personally, I wish they would have at least painted those treads just so they're not red and, kind of cheap looking, but oh well. So yeah, I mean, which one of these is the better microscope, I think comes down to personal taste. I think the older figure has more play value because you can actually use it. You can put, little Titan Masters in here to be looked at, and, just is a little bit more fun, less of just a brick. This one, though, I think just looks cleaner and is shaped just a little bit more like an actual microscope. Okay, now we're going to transform Perceptor into his tank mode. And this is his actual tank mode, not the one in the instructions that the designers refer to as a tank. That's actually the, upright mortar version. We're going to show you the actual, flat tank. So, I guess you can call it unofficial, maybe. It's up to you. But first thing I'm going to do is just remove this. Go ahead and get that out of there. And then, straighten the legs out, like so. Rotate these around. And bring the legs forward. Now, it's not going to be a very good tank, I gotta warn you. There's some clearance issues here. But the original tank, it laid flat like this. So, looked kind of sort of like an actual tank. Oh yeah, and then this little rifle here, you plug into the side of the scope. Just get on there like that. And there it is. That's the tank mode. It doesn't, sit as flush or as nicely as I'd like it to, but it is the closest you can approximate with this new version. And here's our look at the Titan's Return version of that. Again, this isn't an official mode for this toy either. And really the reason for that is with the original Perceptor toy, even though he had a tank mode, he could assume the instructions ignored that one and just showed off the Mortar Mode, which they call like a mobile laboratory or something. So because that's the only one that's officially recognized, that's the only one they designed these updates around. So neither of these are going to be, perfect. Now I will say, I think the Titan's Return version pulls it off a little bit better just because the treads actually sit out to the side, which is nice, and everything sits much more flat. And he also has flip out treads in the front, which extend them and make them look, a little more substantial than, what we get over here. So it's up to you if you want to consider these, official or legitimate or not. I just thought I'd show that off because it is one of the classic modes the toy can assume, even if it's not officially recognized as such. Okay, now, if you want to assume Perceptor's official mortar or mobile lab mode, whatever you want to call it, very simple. You just rotate the legs to where these little holes right here line up with these tabs on the forearms, and you just press them in. That's it. that's like the big difference. Reposition this to point forward or point up if you want it, more like a mortar. That's it. That's the big difference. It just kind of lifts up a little bit, but at least now the treads and feet and all that are pointing straight forward instead of being splayed out to the side a little bit. So for this toy, this mode looks a lot better because it just pulls it off a lot better. Here again is our Prime Wars version. And just like with the tank mode, I think he just pulls this off a little bit better. And that's because they allowed more of his details to lean more toward these tertiary modes. But the new Perceptor, even though they designed him to have these modes, they were really meant to be kind of minimized in his design so as to make him, as cartoon accurate as possible. So that is a reality that I personally think makes his extra modes just a little dinkier and not quite as impressive. I think the TR1 just works a lot better. It looks more like a tank. It has more substantial treading, and it has like a weapon emplacement that's more impressive, and has, a little pilot that can hang out. I just think it's the better of the two, but it's not by like a huge margin. I mean, they are both the same mode, more or less. There's just really, small details that are different between them. Okay, it's now time to transform Perceptor to his robot mode. Now, you can do this from either mode, and honestly, the transformation is not very different. I mean, if you do it for this one, you can do it for the telescope mode, or microscope mode. I've probably made that mistake, I'm sure, more times than I'd like. Okay, so first thing you do is just remove all that. Go ahead and pull this up out of the way. Attach the legs. Let's go ahead and straighten everything out. And you want... let's see. Want the legs with the treads facing inward. Sorry. Confused myself for a moment. Okay, so get everything straight. Right down. Flip the feet forward like that, close the chest. Then you're gonna pull the arms away and untab them. You see they have a little slot right there that goes on that tab. So just kind of untab them, pull them off to the side. And then there's this little panel here. Now this part of the transformation is, the most, I guess, unique part of it. It's kind of interesting. So you pull that panel away, fold this one down, and then fold that blue bit down. Then you flip the head up. It does leave him with a pretty empty back, unfortunately. Fold this in, push it down. It's got like a little tab, like pair of tabs that just kind of grip each other. You don't need to have it on there, but it just helps hold it in place. All right, let's go ahead and flip out his fists. They'll click into place. Flip up these arm panels, which will catch right here on these red panels, like so. Same thing on this side. Okay, so we got the robot mode. Tilt the ankles a little bit, get that nice dynamic pose going on, and give him his little rifle here. And here we go. This guy should be instantly recognizable as Perceptor. And I will say overall, the robot mode does look very good and is very cartoon accurate. It is a fairly simple toy, and there's one thing about this toy that I want to point out here that has been a little bit controversial. We can see that his shoulders utilize ball joints. And while that may not be anything like shocking or, really, I guess, out there, it is odd for a toy released in current year, because ever since War for Seibertron trilogy, all of the main generations toys, and then, so far, all of the Studio Series 86, which really are just kind of an extension of, your main generations, they've all been very good about utilizing universal joints for the, shoulders, hips, all that. Because they're more reliable, they're less likely to, wear down and become loose with age. So a lot of people were really put off by the ball joints in the shoulders. And I tried to give this toy the benefit of the doubt when it came to that, and not just assume that they were cheaping out. I thought maybe that it was, due to the transformation, it was necessary in some way. But as far as I could tell, it's really not necessary to utilize ball joints for the shoulders. Like, I think you could achieve all the same stuff if you had, a set of universals here. So it does appear to just be a cost-cutting measure, which is odd because Perceptor is like not a very complicated transformer. Like, the part counts, all that, are not nearly as complex as some other deluxe class toys. So why they felt the need to cut that corner there, I really don't know. And I doubt the designers would really be upfront with us about it, even if we asked. They tend to be very dodgy when, being questioned about, budgetary issues. And they kind of have to be. Like, they get in trouble with Hasbro if they're just like, well, we were going to make it better, but it was too expensive, so we didn't. They don't usually get that candid with us. Now, when it comes to this subject, I usually refer people to BotCon 2016 when they were asked about Computron. Or I don't know if they were asked or if they just, spoke on it unprompted. I can't really remember. But they talked about the fact that, Computron's head looked exactly like Superion's. They gave this whole, well, it's all about evolving the design, and this and that. Evolving the design does not mean just make him look like an existing character. It's come on, don't whiz on us and tell us it's raining. So I have a feeling if we ever did ask about the shoulders, they'd just give us, some other similar excuse. Now, is that a deal breaker for this toy? No. I mean, we've dealt with ball joints since, the late 80s, early 90s, and they're a fairly reliable means of articulation. So I'm not going to be this toy's ruined, it's terrible because it's got ball joints. But it is very disappointing because I do kind of expect better, especially with how much we pay for these now. And the fact that, like I said, he's not an overly complex toy, so there's not really a very good excuse. All right, so that little bit aside, though, as far as the articulation he has, the head is on a ball joint, but that's, that's normal. Ball jointed shoulders, though, they function pretty much identically to Universal's. It's got a bicep swivel, single bend elbows, no wrist articulation, sadly. It does have a full waist swivel, which is nice. Universal hips. And they go with that kind of hip skirt style of doing things, like with Earthrise Optimus. A high thigh swivel here. Now his thighs do bend, but I mean they're really supposed to stay in place in robot mode. He's got a pretty deep knee bend, even though it's just a single bend. And then he does have ankle tilt, so that's pretty nice. So I mean his articulation is good. It's pretty standard for your Generations or Studio Series 86 type toy. Also, this can, move around. It can tip back. It can fold all the way back if you want to keep it off his shoulder area there. Can't really rotate or anything, so it's just kind of stuck facing forward. And yeah, he does have this unfortunate giant hole in his back that they didn't feel the need to put a cover over or anything. Now riddle me this: since they save so much money using ball joints for the shoulders, why couldn't they put a cover here? Why? Single panel, just a simple hinge, no pins or anything. Nope. Giant gaping hole. So again, while it doesn't make him a bad toy, it does make him disappointing because he could have been better and it would not have even come close to breaking the bank on this figure's budget. So, I don't know. A little disappointing, but he still looks good from most angles. So, there's that. Right now, we finally get to take a look at the backdrop that comes with Perceptor. And like we said, it's the Battle of Autobot City. So you can see the nice golden towers and walkways of Autobot City being hit with purple Decepticon explosions, because apparently when you're a Decepticon, even your explosions are purple. But it's a very nice looking backdrop. There's this real smooth quality to it. And then, of course, you can take Perceptor and place him on it. Now, I'm pretty sure he'll fit just fine in the Microscope Mode as well. I think the feet will probably hang off the front, but it should stay balanced well enough to stay on there. But I think this looks really nice. You get Perceptor, in battle, defending the city. It's a really good backdrop for him. It really, really complements him being, his big breakout scene in the movie. Now for our final comparison, once again, we got the TR toy in its robot mode. And you can see the proportions are very different on him. And I will say, I think that overall, our new Studio Series 86 has the best robot mode. And that's just going from aesthetics, not even talking posability. Though their posability is very similar. Everything functions pretty much exactly the same way on these guys. The only real difference is that the older toy lacks ankle articulation because that just wasn't really, a standard then. Now, there are a few good reasons, aside from just technology or transformation, that this Perceptor looks quite a bit different. He's actually based much more on the IDW interpretation of the character, which was a pretty popular design choice during the Prime Wars trilogy. And that's especially evident in things like his chest shape and all that, even his helmet shape a little bit, and the fact that his rifle is more in the style of a sniper rifle, because in IDW, at least 1.0, Perceptor was a sniper. Now, I still kind of wish they gave him the eye patch thing they had in the comics, but they didn't take it that far. So I will say that our new Studio Series figure takes the cake in the microscope and robot modes, and then our older figure looks just a little bit better when it comes to the tertiary modes, the tank and the mortar. Here's a fun little group shot of Perceptor along with Blaster, and this is to simulate the moment in the movie where, Perceptor rushes up to Blaster to request he places a call for aid as Autobot City's under attack. And the exchange between the two is probably one of the more memorable scenes in the entire movie. At least for me it was. I don't know, maybe you feel differently. But I think it's cool to be able to, recreate that if you want to, because now you have, both these characters in a very cartoon-accurate look. Here's another shot I wanted to do of Perceptor making Ultra Magnus's head hurt by giving him a very technically jargoned assessment of the situation. Now, I must be a giant nerd because I never actually found Perceptor's lines to be particularly confusing. I mean, I get it's a kid's movie, and the vocabulary might have been a little advanced for kids, but I was pretty young when I saw it. I don't know. Maybe I just read too much or something. And this completes our look at Studio Series 86 Perceptor. I will say, overall, I enjoy this toy very much. It does exactly what it, sets out to accomplish. It gives you a nice G1 accurate, and specifically, G1 cartoon or movie accurate Perceptor character. The Microscope Mode looks good. The Tank and Mortar modes, well, the Tank mode doesn't look good, but he wasn't designed for the Tank mode. The Mortar mode, though, does look pretty decent, and I think the Robot mode looks fantastic. Now, he is hampered by budget cuts. The open back and the ball-jointed shoulders, they are let down. It's something that was really unnecessary and really kind of drops him down a little bit in terms of quality, especially, what we expect at this price and this price point. But it by no means ruins the toy. I mean, other toys have had hollow backs, right? You look at, Impactor. Well, no, he had hollow legs. Look at Ironhide, right? He's got a big hollow back. And a lot of people are annoyed by that, but that doesn't necessarily make him just a terrible toy. It just makes him a good toy with a pretty glaring flaw. And I think, the same can be said for Perceptor. Great figure. He just, unfortunately, gets hit with some budget cuts that ruin the aesthetic of the toy. But aside from those budget cuts, I think he's really great. He's a lot of fun. He's, I think, the best G1 Perceptor toy we've received, at least as far as, nailing that G1 accuracy. Obviously, there's the original toy, but, it's not very posable, not the most fun thing to play with, and it also strays from the, redesign that he was given for the cartoon. Now, I will be shocked if they don't end up making a Magnificus recolor of this guy. I mean, it's just like a built-in recolor. I'm sure they already have like an alternate head tool with the mouth plate and all that. I would be shocked. Though, they didn't make a Magnificus for Titan's Return Perceptor, so it's not guaranteed, right? They could skip over it. Like, Takara didn't even make a Magnificus out of the toy. Really weird. Like, you thought that was going to happen. For this guy, though, I feel like there's no way. I mean, it's possible he's a one and done, but I highly doubt it. I think we're going to see his, Diaclone, Decepticon, counterpart coming eventually. Probably as a Selects or maybe like a store exclusive or something. And I look forward to it because, personally, I don't own any Magnificus toys. Hard name to say. So I'm looking forward to getting that, and it'll just help reuse the mold in a good expected way and flesh out your Decepticon ranks for your G1 collection. So I think this toy is very much worth picking up. I'm sure a lot of other people are really hankering to get him, and he is not only starting to show up online. I actually got mine from GameStop's website, believe it or not, but I am seeing sightings in stores too of him and the other parts of his wave. So if you're looking for him, I would begin hunting now. I think even though he's not the most complex thing out there and he's got some weird design choices, I think you'll be very satisfied with him for your money. And, if you're anything like me, you'll be happy to just get a Perceptor that looks good, holds together well, and, really complements your modern chug collection. Of course, that is just my take on this toy. So now I want to know what you all think of him. Do you think this is like your quintessential Perceptor? Do you think he just tops all the other attempts and he's, the one you've been waiting on? Or do you feel differently? Maybe you don't like him as much as the Titan's Return or, Legends recolor that. Or maybe you even like that vehicle-based Perceptor more. Any and all feedback's always welcome in the comments section. If you enjoyed this review, go ahead and toss it a like. Let YouTube know you want to see more stuff like this. If you do want to see more like this, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you always get a heads up when I post something new. I thank you for joining me for this very exciting look at the new Transfomers Studio Series 86 Deluxe Class Perceptor. And with all that said, I will see you next time.